I'm endlessly fascinated and curious about the world around us, about business, about politics, about the arts, about culture, developments, social issues, and the people. Most importantly, about the people that are shaping our future. Every night, I get the opportunity to have conversations, to dive into conversations with thought leaders, with change makers, entrepreneurs, politicians, and everyday heroes who unpack the ideas and stories that I think matter to all of us. What's the future of our economy? What's the future of our country? How do we build stronger communities? What can we learn from music, theater, sports, politics, the arts? How does policy shape our real lives? What does leadership look like, real leadership in today's environment? If it's interesting and relevant and topical and we're talking about it, you'll hear about it here at 6 o'clock on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I want to have real conversations, in-depth conversations. These are ideas we're sharing. This is the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Thanks for joining me. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I've got Parisa Mahboubi with us tonight. She is an Associate Director of Research at the C.D. Howe Institute, and we're going to talk about immigration. She's written a really interesting column that I read about immigration and the challenges we've got in our immigration system in Canada today, and she's made a bunch of recommendations as to what we should be doing. And so I thought it'd be great to have her on. Parisa Mahboubi is, as I mentioned, Associate Director of Research. She leads the Human Capital Policy Research Program and chairs the Immigration Targets Council. Her research focuses on social policy with a particular emphasis on immigration, demographics, generational accounting, as well as education skills and labor market issues. Parisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
Our pleasure, my pleasure. So tell me, why do you say that Canada's immigration policy has lost its way? We've lost our way?
That's true, because in recent years, we have moved away from a clear merit-based approach, and we started chasing numeric targets and also feeling addressing short-term labor needs and also meeting non-economic objectives through our economic immigration system. And at the same time, we didn't realize that there must be a balance between temporary immigration and permanent immigration. And not only we increased, we saw a significant increase in the number of temporary immigration and temporary immigrants in Canada. And in terms of the type of individuals we admitted, that has been also concerning. We have to revise the system to make sure that we are admitting those that can contribute to our economy in the long term and increase GDP per capita and contribute to our productivity in the long term.
So, there's been lots of focus on the numbers, and I guess what you're arguing is that who we select is far more important than how many we admit. But let's talk about the numbers for a second. What I had heard is that we were, admitting 200 to 300,000 people a year into Canada, but it ballooned to like 1 million people for a couple of years post-COVID. Is that correct?
That's true. We saw significant increase both in regards to temporary and permanent immigration. For permanent immigration, government has always had a target for the number of people they can admit every year, and post-pandemic they started to increase the targets for permanent immigration significantly, given that our population is aging and the labor force growth mainly is driven by immigration. So there was a justification that we need immigrants to support population growth and labor force growth. But at the same time, we have also relaxed our admission of temporary immigrants, non-permanent residents, which include international students and temporary foreign workers, by relaxing criteria and admitting more of those without thinking, okay, a large number of immigrants, new arrivals, are going to put pressure on the system, and whether we are able to absorb that significant increase in our labor market, housing market. and other resources are available to support that increase in the population. Unfortunately, with weak capital investment that we have in the labor market and in economy, and also low productivity challenges we are facing, we weren't able to absorb that increase in the number of people, and also we didn't pay attention on quality. There is a trade-off between quality and quantity. When you
Always
increase,
is. There always is.
yes, when you increase the numbers significantly, you have to reduce the standards, and that also created challenges, competition for entry-level jobs that young individuals are also looking for. So the problem was significant increase during the short period of time, and also reducing our standards.
Okay, so let's talk about some of these different programs or immigration ways of coming into Canada, and break it into its component pieces, if we could. Temporary foreign workers. I have heard from lots of people that we need these temporary foreign workers because they're the people that work in jobs that Canadians won't take. That they are low wage, that they are farm workers, that they're doing some efforts, and to do a massive restriction of temporary foreign workers means that we'll end up making some of our farms uneconomic, amusement parks uneconomic, healthcare centers uneconomic, etc. What do you say to that?
So in terms of temporary immigration, either as those international students and temporary foreign workers, I admit that we need them, and they are valuable not only in terms of their contribution to our labor market in the short term, and also in terms of, for example, the contribution of international students to our economy. They spend in tuition, they need housing, they spend a lot of money, and they contribute to our economy. But the problem is that and also another benefit of these categories is that they are great potential for our permanent immigration. So we do have two-step immigration, and we try to basically prioritize international students who have Canadian education, and temporary foreign workers with Canadian work experience. We try to focus on to select for permanent immigration, because the evidence shows that there is a value to that. These individuals have gained Canadian experience. They were in Canada. They have majority. They have better language skills. So they are great potential candidates for permanent immigration. But the problem is that when it comes to international students, for example, again, because we wanted to increase the number of international students, we admit as many as we could, and we didn't pay attention to the type of institution admitting those international students, the type of program we are providing, even the quality of program, and also allowing international students to work in Canada. That created actually a pathway for those individuals that they wanted to work in Canadian labor market. So not with the purpose of gaining education in Canada, but the bigger concerns and the objective for those individuals was to enter the labor market. For temporary foreign workers also, this is important, that we need to address labor market needs through temporary immigration when there is absolutely no way to fill those jobs, and because, for example, it takes time to train someone to gain specific skills to be able to fill those jobs, or it is not possible to, it's not possible to attract domestic workers and Canadians by offering higher wages or making automation. Maybe for some jobs it's not possible to it's not possible to automate them, but if any job is possible to be filled by increasing wages, if it is possible to train in the short term, to train existing workforce and encourage them to take those jobs, or make automation and make capital investment to address labor needs, employers should do that first. Even in sectors that we are not able to attract Canadians, we have to think about automation when it comes to agriculture. It is possible to reduce labor needs through automation. This is something that unfortunately employers have been dependent on temporary immigration for so long time, and it's been so easy for them to have access to temporary foreign workers that they were completely discouraged considering other ways.
So, it's interesting what you're saying in regards to temporary foreign workers, that Canadian companies could just increase their wages and attract Canadians to do those jobs, and or invest in more automation and machinery such that your productivity increases. Just to counter that for a second, I've been told that without temporary foreign workers, we might as well close down the Niagara and the Okanagan fruit businesses, that they're completely reliant on temporary foreign workers, that Canadians won't take those jobs. No matter what you pay, and that temporary foreign workers are the only people that will come in and perform those services. And that's one example. And they go on to numerous other examples in the agricultural sector that's comparable to the United States, frankly, that without temporary foreign workers, they think the industries will just become uneconomic and close down. You don't accept that. Is that correct?
I'm not against I'm not against that temporary foreign worker program is helpful to support businesses, and I'm not saying that we should, actually I'm against shutting down the entire the program. It has some streams that we benefit from. But in regards to some of those occupations that employers think that it's not possible to do it through domestic labor, we have to give employers a path to at least reduce their dependency on temporary foreign workers. For example, by making it more expensive, bringing low-skilled temporary foreign workers. That gives those employers incentive to think about, for example, automation. Yes, maybe even with automation, we still need some temporary foreign workers, but not at the current rate and level that we've seen recently.
So, in the United States, we've seen examples of ICE, lots of media reports, videos or whatnot, or of ICE coming in and deporting people. We are, from what I understand, scaling back our temporary foreign worker program fairly dramatically right now. And we've talked about, it going down. Are we going to have deportations? Are we going to have a Canadian version of ICE? Are we going to have forcible, groups of, police people or RCMP or whoever it is, immigration personnel going to farms across southwestern Ontario and in the Okanagan, arresting temporary foreign workers and putting them in cells and deporting them? Are we going to have ICE come to Canada to put in place these policies to dramatically reduce temporary foreign workers in Canada?
That may not be the right approach, but there is no doubt that to protect our integrity of immigration system, we need better policy, and we need to be more firm about what should be the next step for temporary foreign workers. For example, the first step is to improve the system in terms of admissions. And also many of temporary immigrants in Canada, they arrive with the hope of becoming permanent immigrants. So basically that was a message that we sent to the world, that come to Canada as temporary foreign workers or international students, and you will become permanent immigrants. So that's a message that we sent to the message, which was wrong. And the problem is that unfortunately, in the past, we were able to admit many of these temporary foreign workers or temporary residents to permanent immigrants because there was a balance between the total number of, the total population of temporary residents in Canada compared to the number of people we can admit every year. Unfortunately, that ratio is not that has expanded. There is imbalance between the number of people can be that can become permanent immigrants in Canada, and that created challenges for many of those because
So it's a good program, but it was expanded too too sizably. There was too many people let in. Is
It
that the
expanded significantly, but at the same time, the quality and the type of temporary foreign workers or international student also, has changed. So that created significant challenges. And also, we do have, for example, the targets that the government has in place. It's mainly for international students and temporary foreign workers, but we have asylum system, something
Okay,
that
let's wait on the asylum system and permanent residency. Let's just focus on temporary foreign workers. Bottom line on temporary foreign workers, I think your analysis, my assessment is that you think it's a good program, but it was expanded, and the quality of people that we were allowing in was
it
reduced.
expanded, and some reforms have been made that weren't beneficial. So we need both managing the numbers in terms of managing the number of arrivals, new arrivals to the country. At the same time, we have to revise the system that those that who think that there is no way for them to become permanent immigrants to arrive or either stay in Canada. If the message is clear, if we reform our permanent immigration system and make it transparent, make it predictable. Unfortunately, right now, our permanent immigration system, through economic immigration, for admitting economic immigrants, it's not transparent. There is no way even top talent can predict what's the chance of becoming permanent immigrants, unfortunately.
We're talking about immigration today. We've got an expert from the C.D. Howe Institute with us. So we're going to take a break for some messages. And when we're back in 2 minutes, we're going to chat some more with Parisa about temporary students. We're going to talk about refugees, asylum seekers. We're going to talk about permanent residents. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're talking immigration today with the expert, Parisa Mahboubi. She's an associate director of research at the C.D. Howe Institute. She leads the Human Capital Policy Research Program and chairs the Immigration Targets Council. She's written recently a really good column in the paper that really walked through some of the challenges we have in our immigration system. We've talked about temporary foreign workers. I now want to switch, if I could, Parisa, and talk about foreign students. And I want to give you 2 points of view that I've heard and hear what you got to say. So I've heard that that the foreign students program was just a way of a whole bunch of private colleges almost getting a whole bunch of people in, that they were fooling that it would be a fast route to Canadian citizenship. They weren't actually offering them really good education. They brought them to the country. They all came from 1 or 2 countries in Asia. And it really took advantage of them because they tried to position it as a quick way, a fast way to get a job in Canada, to get Canadian immigrant status, and they didn't actually go to school. They were sort of fictitious educational programs. That's one point of view. The other point of view was 57% of all of the great venture capital companies in Silicon Valley were started by people on student visas. I was a student on an H-1 visa in the United States that we've got now, particularly because of the restriction the Trump government has put on foreign students into the United States. An incredible opportunity to have a brain gain into Canada with incredibly bright people from around the world that are going to come to Canada, go to our universities, and spur some of the economic development that we so desperately want. And it's the proof is what's happened in Silicon Valley. And so therefore, foreign students are a resource that we want. So foreign students are just a private college ways of getting fast immigration status and are a real problem in our economy. To this is a brain gain, huge opportunity in Canada, which is true.
Actually, both are true because we do have a wide range of institutions in Canada that we attract international students. Some that they are, unfortunately, we had some bad players that they use the system, they play and they game the system, and they attract too many international students with the goal of, just focusing on their tuition revenue and without providing high quality even education to those international students, promising them that they can become permanent immigrants, attracting them. And they come to Canada with the hope of, gaining Canadian education and also becoming part of Canadian society and become permanent immigrants and contribute to our economy. At the same time, we do have institutions that we still they are able to attract top talent and top students from the world. They gained they received great quality education here in Canada, and some of those are able to remain in Canada and contribute to our economy, or we can export our education to other countries. And so there are two stories actually exist, and we've had it. And the recommendations of my piece is that we need to move away from the first story to the second one. We allow those institutions, respected institutions that have proven that they can produce high quality international students, they can provide high quality programs to those international students. We need to allow them to continue attracting those top students from the world, and without no restriction even on the numbers. If they are able to attract top students, why not? We shouldn't really restrict them, but at the same time we have to eliminate bad players. That's a policy that we need to focus on.
How do we do this? I've heard that the Harvard School of Business and Harvard Kennedy School of Government, because of the threats from the Trump government of kicking out people on H-1 visas in the United States, have made an agreement with the University of Toronto such that they can come and study at the Monk School or the Rotman School. And these are people that had H-1 visas to go to a pretty good university in the United States that Trump is now potentially not allowing to stay in the United States. Harvard and U of T have negotiated an agreement to help these people. Sounds to me like they're probably people that would be great, benefits to society, benefits to our community, benefits to those educational institutions. How do we ensure that we keep those people or keep the opportunities for those people to come, and as you say, not encourage the bad actors? How do you do that?
So, first of all, we need to take advantage of what's happening around us. For example, what's happening in the south of the border and the immigration policy in US. We have to maximize our benefit from those policy shifts in other countries. This is something other countries also are doing. We need to do that to benefit from. And also in terms of doing that, this is also province's responsibility. It's not all federal government. So in terms of nominating or designating institutions to be able to admit international students, this is provinces that are doing that. And they have to review their list. They have to, we have to use the data and use the data in a better way. The data about, for example, labor market outcomes of international students graduated and entered the labor market. We shouldn't really allow international students who, for those institutions that they are not able, that the government even doesn't allow them to provide post-graduation work permit. It means that their quality of education or their students is not high enough to be able to enter the labor market. So we have to refine the list of institutions. We have a list of designated institutions that they can admit international students. This is on provinces. They have to do that. But at the same time, federal government should increase its involvement in refining the list of institutions, and to be able, so we have those institutions that they have proven they are able to produce high quality international students, being able to use their power and their ability to attract more international students.
So we've talked about temporary foreign workers, and we've talked about international students. And, I think a lot of people are worried that the programs increased fairly dramatically over the last couple of years. And so that created a lot of problems with housing, problems with healthcare, problems with jobs, et cetera. I've had, again, two different points of view presented to me. One is that, it was a huge program. It was taken advantage of. It was a massive increase. It created a housing, bubble as they demanded housing that we didn't have, et cetera. And then I've had other people say, it's the best way to integrate people into your society. If they come and they get educated, they learn the language, or they come, they get a job, they get Canadian employment, Canadian experience. Because otherwise, the permanent residences that we potentially get, the biggest challenge they have is if they don't have English language or French language abilities. That Australia, I understand, allows people to come with a job already offered. Canada doesn't, and so therefore having someone that's got a job already, which is critical if you're going to have a successful life and career and be able to afford a house and integrate into society. We don't allow that. So if someone's come in as a student or a temporary foreign worker, they'll have the benefit of the job. And so therefore, actually, integration into society is far better if they've started as a temporary foreign worker or started as a foreign student rather than just coming in as a potential permanent resident. So, 2 points of view on that topic. Where do you land?
So, in terms of temporary foreign workers, we have to make a balance. First of all, in terms of the benefit, there is no doubt that when they arrive to Canada, either by job offer, it is possible that even for both temporary and permanent immigration, individuals arrive with a job offer. And but those who are already in Canada, they have Canadian work experience. Of course, they are more familiar with our labor market. Their integration is, they already went through a stage of integration phase, and post permanent immigration, they are able to integrate better and more successfully in our labor market because of the experience they gained. At the same time, the problem with temporary immigration is that significant increase in their numbers create imbalance. So when we have a large number, even high quality, large number of temporary foreign workers in Canada, but we have limited number of people we can admit every year for permanent immigration, that imbalance creates challenges. So this is something we have to, yes, definitely we want temporary high skilled, those with relevant labor market skills, temporary foreign workers in Canada, but the total number, the stock of temporary foreign workers should be checked and should be in balance with the number of people we can admit. There is no doubt about that. And in regards to, for example, the type of temporary foreign workers we admit, for example, there are jobs, restaurant jobs, or in some grocery stores that we hire temporary foreign workers that we don't really, it doesn't mean that Canadians, they are not available to take those jobs. Post-pandemic, we didn't see a reduction in the total number of people in the labor force. The labor force numbers, it didn't decline. It's just there was a shift from, there were some industrial shift and occupational shifts because people found they were able to find better jobs. They moved from one job to another job. That's the thing. Employers need to remain competitive. They have to seek for potential labor in Canada. Many groups, they are facing high unemployment, and high unemployment and unemployment rate is rising. So this is really important to consider that we have to make a balance with the absorptive capacity of labor market and the number of people we bring. I'm not saying we should shut down the door. We need immigrants for our population, but the message is that more is not better. And we have to think about who we select. Who we select is more important than how many.
Okay, so again, it sounds like you're not against the program. You're saying that we need to limit the size of it.
And reform it. We need to reform the system.
Okay, so do you have a number? What guardrails would you put in place? What numbers would you put in place?
Currently, we are at more than 7% of the total temporary residence right now. It's at slightly higher than 7% of total population. Last year, the government announced 5% ceiling for the target for temporary foreign work in temporary immigrants in general. I think we still need to make sure we meet that target first. That should be the first step. We need to create a ceiling and maintain that ceiling for the total number of temporary residents. That doesn't mean that's the perfect number, but that's the first step we need to achieve. We haven't been successful to meeting that target since the announcement. Actually, since the announcement, we saw initially increase in the number of temporary residents. So we have to make sure that the government by end of next year is able to meet the 5% target and reassess. So, okay, how many, the ultimate goal should be a balance between the total number of temporary residents with the total number of people we can admit every year. Maybe the ratio should be 1/5, 1/10. I don't know. We have to reassess. We have to reevaluate.
So we've got about 40 million people in Canada. So you're talking about 2 million people being the limit?
Something like that. Right now, it's more than 3 million. So the problem is that every year now we are admitting less than 500,000 immigrants. It's less than 400,000. So we have to make a balance between, because the ultimate goal of temporary residents in Canada is to become permanent immigrants. That's
so hold it. So if you're saying the target should be 5% of the population for temporary workers and students, which is about 2 million people, and you're saying we're over 3 or at 3 million right now?
Yes, we are around 3 million.
So do we have 1 million people that we got to deport out of Canada?
Not deport necessarily. So there are 3 ways to manage temporary immigration. First of all, arrival. So the government announced last year for the first time some targets on, for example, the number of study permits and temporary work permits. But the problem is that it's not still clear even to me whether they include just new arrivals to Canada or include those numbers included renewal. So renewal includes those people already in Canada. There are different ways that the government can manage those numbers. First of all, by limiting the number of arrivals, and also by ensuring that those who are they have no other ways to stay in Canada, they leave the country eventually. And also the main other way is that to transition to make some of those temporary immigrants to become permanent immigrants. So currently around 40% of total permanent immigrants come from those temporary immigrants. So that's one way of reducing the total number. But who should be selected as permanent immigrants? Again, that's a main question. We have to focus on those who were able to find good paying jobs. It shouldn't be just experience. It should be also the earnings, whether they were able to find good jobs, not just any job in Canada.
I agree. We got to find people that are going to integrate into our society, make a contribution, find good jobs.
And also verify their earnings, because some game the system.
We're going to take a break for some messages, and when we come back, I want to ask our guest about her own personal experience, because Parisa is an immigrant as well. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We've got Parisa Mahboubi with us today. She's with the C.D. Howe Institute. She runs their immigration policy. She's written a recent article that I found very compelling about, the challenges with our immigration policy. I want to take a step back, if I could, for a second, Parisa. You're an immigrant yourself, and you seem like, frankly, the perfect immigrant, because I take a look at your resume. Shiraz University, you got a bachelor's in economics and then you got a master's in economics. Where is Shiraz University, by the way?
Shiraz is a city in Iran, the southwest part of Iran.
And you did a research thesis on the effect of exchange rate volatility on foreign trade. Then you came to Canada, and maybe you'll tell us a little bit about how you came to Canada. You went to the University of Guelph and got a master's degree in applied microeconomics and looked at educational attainment, literacy skills, and labor market outcomes among different generations of immigrants in Canada. And then you got a PhD in economics. And so from 2007 to 2017, 10 years, you were going to school in Canada. I don't know whether you were an international student or what, but you got a pretty impressive educational background, and then you went to work, and you worked for 7 years at the University of Guelph as a teaching assistant, as an instructor, as a research assistant, and then a statistical assistant at Stats Canada, and then the C.D. Howe Institute. You've spent 9 years as a senior policy analyst and then associate director of research, and you're now running the research on immigration. You seem to be exactly the type of immigrant that we want. Great education, great work experience, and now you're contributing to society. Sounds like immigration is working.
Yes, immigration. So first of all, I came to Canada as a permanent immigrant. I was an international student, and I didn't come through economic immigration. I came through family class, but I was well educated before arriving. I obtained my master's before arriving to Canada. But when I arrived, I realized that, especially in my field of study, I needed to go back to university to be able to find the job that I was hoping for, the type of jobs that I was really interested. So that was a decision, and that was the right decision for me. So that's why, for example, international students are great potential, because even I was an international student and I was a permanent resident. I realized that gaining Canadian education would help me to land in a high paying job, in a job that is relevant to my skills and education, and I can be more successful and contribute more to our economy.
Did you speak English when you came to Canada?
I was able to speak English, but of course it has improved over time. So coming from
and you came through family reunification. Did you have parents here or cousins here or what?
My spouse. So the thing is that when those coming from family stream, they are not selected based on their human capital, based on their education, language. And the labor market data also shows that economic immigrants, because they are selected based on their human capital factors like education, language, and skills, they do better than other streams of immigrants. But what I did is that
go back to family reunification. And I've heard that people that come as part of family reunification actually integrate really well because they've got family here as a support system. Is that true or not true?
The data doesn't show that. The data show that economic immigrants, again, because they are selected based on the factors that help them to integrate immediately into the labor market. But I'm talking about the principal applicants of economic immigration. I'm talking about 30% of total immigrants in Canada. That because they are selected based on those factors, they can contribute immediately to our labor market. So that's the immediate labor market outcome. So even for me, I went back to university, I studied, and then I joined the labor market. So that's the value of, that's the value that we can think about international students, what they can offer if they receive high quality education in Canada. And also, for example, for my in the reforms that I provided for permanent immigration, for economic immigration, I focus also on language. Language is really important for integration of immigrants. I witnessed that, I experienced that. So it's really, really important to focus on those candidates for permanent immigration through economic immigration system, that they have high language skills in official language, for example.
So I've been told that one of the criticisms is that we value education above everything else in our permanent residency process, that we don't value necessarily having a job, that people aren't allowed to actually get a job offer before they come, and that language isn't valued as high as you're suggesting. So how would you change our permanent residency program?
So we have a system that allocates points to each factor. These factors include experience, and in terms of the allocation of points, it's slightly different between Canadian work experience and or any work experience outside Canada. So those with Canadian work experience, they get some bonus points, and also in terms of, for example, having a job offer. The system used to allocate some points, for job offer, and also in terms of language, we do allocate some points. But when I compare, for example, the allocation of points to language and also within the language ability grade, so we are not doing enough compared to other countries like Australia. So we have to emphasize on high language ability. We have to reform our system in terms of allocation of the points to each factor, and also within each factor how we distribute the points. We need also add other factors. We have to look at the data. We have to use the evidence to improve our system. What that means that, for example, education alone is not a good factor of skills. High level of education, it means that individuals probably they have higher levels of skill, they can contribute better. But education itself alone is not a good factor.
You've got all these, physicians or scientists supposedly driving Ubers and taxis.
So that's another problem. Selection is one part of our immigration system. Integration is another part. We have to work together, not only improving the selection, but also integration. That requires different sets of policy and reforms and recommendations for the government, and they have to go hand in hand. We shouldn't only focus on selection, but better selection. Definitely the data shows that even with the challenges we have with integration, improving selection, for example, introduction of express entry in 2015-16, since the beginning of that, we saw significant improvements in the labor market outcomes of economic immigrants in Canada, even with the current situation we have in terms of, for example, qualification recognition and the other challenges that immigrants facing in terms of integration. Selection improved outcomes. We have to focus on that. We have to refine the system. We have to improve it instead of taking away some of those advantages we've witnessed.
It sounds good, but you're the opposite example. You obviously had incredible qualifications. You spoke English. You had great probability of having a great career, but you came in just because you were the spouse of somebody.
But I believe if I applied to economic immigration, I was able to obtain, to meet the requirements, because I had master's degree, I had work experience in Iran. I was able to meet the requirements for the language, but at the same time, I'm telling you, if the requirement is higher, that encourage foreign potential candidates to invest in their language before arrivals. If I wanted to come to economic immigration, I would have qualified probably. I would have obtained, I could become a permanent immigrant even at that time. But one thing that is really important, if I wanted to come to Canada with a better system, I would have invested in my human capital, in my language, more than it was at the time.
But you had a master's degree in economics, and you spoke English. What more could you, out of interest? And I don't want to get too personal, but did your spouse come as an economic immigrant, or how did your spouse get here?
No. He was also, he came also through a family class, but he was also well educated. So we could both consider as economic immigrants, But even that, we both study in Canada after arrivals, even with high education.
So, it's interesting because what you're saying is that we've got to reduce our foreign students. We've got to improve our quality of and the points and the quality of people coming through economic integration. And yet, you and your spouse are the examples of maybe we should just pick families that have got great people associated with them and bring in great families because you and your spouse are the best examples of people that have integrated into our society and got educated and speak the language and contribute to our community.
I disagree because, first of all, I'm just one example. We don't know the total number of people, in terms of the qualification. And also at the same time, we have to make sure that family they unite in Canada. If spouses, dependent children, they are away from each other, we have to make sure that they meet each other. And I believe the targets for family class now is designed in a way that makes sure that people can reunited in Canada. So I'm not, we have to maintain economic immigrants because I was one example. Who knows what, the data shows that on average, that category, they are not doing better than economic immigrants. And economic immigrants are the ones that their average earnings is above Canadian earnings, and they are able to contribute at the economy and bring up the total earnings in Canada and contribute to GDP per capita, something that we need to focus on. We shouldn't focus on increasing GDP. We have to focus on increasing GDP per capita.
I agree with that completely. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in 2 minutes with our expert on immigration and some concluding comments. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm having a really enjoyable, fascinating conversation with Parisa Mahboubi, who is the head of the immigration program analysis at the C.D. Howe Institute. She's written a really interesting article a couple days ago about immigration, and she's talked about foreign student workers, about temporary workers, and she's talked about family reunification, and she's talked about economic immigrants. And bottom line, I think what she's saying is we got to reduce the number and we got to increase the quality of the people that we allow into our country. And that she thinks language, work experience, and education are the keys. Though it's interesting that her own personal experience is a little bit different than all of that, in that she and her spouse came here through family reunification, and it would appear it turned out pretty good. If you had a chance, Parisa, to sit down with the Prime Minister or the Minister of Immigration, what would you tell them to do right away? What would you tell them?
So the first thing that they need to do is to reform permanent immigration system for economic immigrants, and we have to reduce all those ad hoc programs and too many programs they have created. It made the system unpredictable, and it's really difficult to understand the contribution of each program to our economy. The data is not enough data available to assess the program immediately and in a timely manner. And also we need to reforms also temporary immigration in a way that we ensure that those potential candidates for permanent immigration are the highest skilled and those that they can contribute to our economy in the long term. And we have to focus on increasing public confidence. Without public confidence in immigration, it's not possible to move the needles. It's not possible to make sure that immigrants can contribute to our economy and benefit from living in Canada. So it's going to make it even difficult to attract top talents. And so we have to focus on that. And also we have to make sure that we encourage employers to do better when it comes to addressing their labor needs. They have to invest in capital and focus on investing in type of capital that can contribute to our productivity, and also ensuring that immigrants, they can contribute to our economy and have a bigger share, because this is what we need, and more is not better. That's the main message.
More is not better.
No.
Parisa, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I think you're right. We've lost public confidence in the immigration program for some reason. I think it's because this significant increase over the course of the last couple of years, and I really worry that some of this anti-immigrant flavor from the United States might spill over into Canada, and yet Canada was built on immigration. And I think that you are an incredible example of the contribution that immigrants can make to Canada. And we need to make sure that public support for immigration stays high. I do think, and I've spoken to and interviewed several other people, where we've got an immigration system, at least we have had in the past, an immigration system that the rest of the world envied and looked
Absolutely.
up to, and tried to emulate Australia, New Zealand, the UK, etc. And I do think we have an incredible opportunity right now to gain from the restrictive policies in the United States. But more is not better.
And who we select is really important.
So we need to find more people like you. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for the contribution that you're making at the C.D. Howe Institute and the studies that you're doing and the articles that you're writing. Because I think it's great proof that immigrants can be incredibly beneficial to and contribute to Canadian society. So we need immigrants, and we do need to increase our per capita GDP. And the statistic that you gave, that economic immigrants actually do really well and actually enjoy incomes on average higher than Canadians. So we just need to do a better job.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that we don't reverse the gains we were able to gain through immigration since the introduction of express entry.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca, and all my podcasts and videos go up on my website, briancrombie.com, on social media, on my YouTube channel, on podcast servers, as soon as the radio show gets broadcast to air. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much, Parisa. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.